Hey guys, just a quick word before this episode starts is I want to apologize for the wind noise. It's so loud throughout the episode. If I didn't think there was value in the content, ultimately I would have just scrapped it altogether. But I think there is something to be learned here. And so I'm not scrapping it, but again, I just want to say sorry. It gets really noisy in places. Thanks for understanding.
Buckle up for safety as I give you a day in the life of online. No, not online. I'm actually there. Facilities maintenance.
Well, summer's officially over. Fall is here and a new rainy season begins. You know what that means. I have a couple new reported roof leaks. This one's kind of the same but different, I think. Pretty clear that it's coming down along that track, which is closest to the wall.
And if you think this all looks familiar, you're right, it does, because it's very close to where our previous leaks were.
It's actually following that kind of a double looking track right there. So somewhere along that line now, which could be going all the way to the far end down there, is water coming in. But wait, that's not all. Let's head over that side of the roof. I have another leak coming from the design lab. Now hopefully that one will be easy to spot. So I got a couple of landmarks that I can go by. Yeah, okay, so there's a couple new vents that were put in here, not by me. They were installed recently. And it's this one right here. And it's right here that John found a puddle of water. Now this is a new boot that was installed, and I trust the person who put this in. But having said that, that doesn't mean that there aren't little leaks around here in this area. In this area here, unlike our spot over there, the channel runs this way, which is north-south. Over here, this channel is running east-west, and with the water coming in here, it could be traveling from out there or up to that point there along that to that little parapet wall there. So anywhere along here. But again, I'll start at the low point because all of these machines are serviced on a fairly regular basis, and over the years, almost 28 of them, there's been a lot of walking traffic around these heaters. And what I have found, especially when I did those last two drain repairs over there, I found a bunch of tiny little holes. You know, there are probably micro leaks happening all over the place in this roof because of its age. In front of the heating units where you were going to be doing maintenance and standing, I mean, you can see how the rocks are compacted. You do get little broken rocks that are sharp on the edges, and what happens is those things grind into the rubber membrane and make little holes. Which is why they started the practice of making sidewalks and pads in front of heating units that you can stand on while you're servicing them. It just decreases the amount of traffic on the roof itself and increases the lifespan of that roof. Now, at 28 years, we've got full life out of this roof. And so finding all these little leaks at the start of the rainy season is... I've been at the school here over 4 years now. My anniversary date was just a few days ago. So I'm in my 5th year now, and every year when the rainy season comes, there are new leaks that pop up all over the place. But anyway, that's enough talking right now. I'm gonna go and look and see if I can find one of these roof leaks, and I'm gonna start with the one over the design lab classroom, because there's a lot of equipment in that room that we do not want water leaking on. And so of the two roof leaks, the other one's just in a hallway and it's kind of a historical leak area. The priority is this one over the classroom here. So that's where I'll start looking. So it is possible that what we had happening is wind-driven rain actually coming in underneath the cap here. And what we may need to do, if that was the case, like if I don't find anything, it might be worth replacing this cap with a different style of cap that doesn't have, you know, the same kind of openings in the side of it where water could have come through. But again, that is what exploration is all about at this stage, and I will see what I find. Okay, well, I may have to go and haul up a couple of buckets of water to kind of slosh this area to get rid of the mud. But you can see that this is a low point area over here where water does collect. Less standing water on this side. But again, it's tough to see until you actually see it. And until I clean this mud off of here, I'm not going to be able to.
What I can tell you is that while it is currently not raining, it is also currently not leaking below.
One thing I did notice while cleaning around here is that this exhaust itself doesn't seem to be supported very well. It's just coming up through the hole, so some kind of anchor, maybe below a bracket, strapping, something below might help with the stability of it. Well, I'd like to think that as I'm getting older, I'm getting wiser, and this is probably a wiser choice. In the past, I would have crawled up here with these buckets of water, but I think it's a smarter idea if I can actually hook the handle to there's a breeze or something because it's blowing my hook over. There. Okay, it's a smarter choice to pull up buckets of water this way as opposed to trying to carry them up the ladder. So much safer. So on my last trip downstairs to fill up and prep these buckets of water that I'm bringing up here, I took another visit to the classroom and I took another look up at the drain, and I think I might have found where the water was coming in. If you look up at the drain, it's hard to see on the camera because I'm not up on a ladder looking right up inside there, but you can see a pinhole of daylight. Well, if light can get through, water can get through. And where that corresponds to up here, I see a little gap in the sealant here and possibly a little gap right there, but we have this seam. And the problem with this type of ducting, this seam here provides a channel, and it's possible that our light is leaking. Well, it looks like it from below, it looks like the light is leaking right at this location. So what I'm gonna do is dose this with some water, and by dose it I mean like really dose it, and then I'm gonna go back downstairs and check and see what we've got going on. That seam is our most likely culprit, and if it is, I may have to reseal that a little differently than my friend has done.
Make it rain!
So let's go back downstairs and check the results of that test. Aha. Looks like our test was successful. That is the vent up there that I'm referring to, and looking at the water on the outside of the ducting there, not coming from the inside. I'll go up on the ladder to verify, but that little pinhole is our issue.
Success!
Okay, the bucket test confirmed that water is definitely coming in at this point, but interestingly, what is then happening, this seam here is the farthest thing from watertight that you'll ever get on a seam. And the water is getting in at this location and then moving to the inside of the duct
where it is then traveling down the duct and then leaking out at the 90-degree bend where it hits that first rotating adjustable seam, because again, that is not a watertight seam. I'm actually glad that my friend didn't actually tape the seams, because had he done that, then the water would have traveled all the way down into the actual fan itself and potentially into the case where the 3D printer is located. This issue is actually this duct. It's a physics issue, right? It's a physical issue with the duct itself. It's got an inherent flaw in it in that this seam provides a path for water to get in. And so to repair this, I will do two things. One, I will remove this band clamp.
Using a product that you have seen before, I will seal this seam completely so it is impervious to water.
Then I may install an actual piece of collar flashing, which ideally, yeah, there should be a piece of collar flashing around here. Let me show you what I mean.
Okay, here's a better example over here.
You've got the top of the boot where it's sealed against the actual vent ducting itself, and then there's a piece of collar flashing above that to add another layer of protection to this. So in the case of that one over there, that little gap would be less exposed to water with a piece of collar flashing above it. So I'll grab a piece of 4-inch collar flashing and add that to that vent. And in addition to that one over there, which is actively leaking, I will need to do the same thing to that one over here, which is on the other side of the classroom, and subject it to the same possibilities. Oh, interesting. So it looks like Rob did seal up along the seam on this one, which is why I am not seeing. Okay, two things different about this one compared to that one. He tightened the clamp up on this side, so this radius is better, but he also sealed up the seam itself.
Maybe it was one of those things where he ran out of sealant, didn't have quite enough to go up, and said, I'll come back to it later. Or maybe it's one of those things where he thought, is it really gonna leak? You never know getting into the mind of somebody else. I could always ask him.
Well, doing my due diligence, and because I had some water left in one of my buckets, I subjected this one to the same test, but just one splash. And yes, it leaks as well.
Well, I'm back up on the roof. The rain has stopped, and so it's a good time to try and get these 4-inch vents repaired so that they no longer leak. I said vents because, yes, the other one also leaks. But in reality, this is the wrong kind of product to be using on a roof application like this. To penetrate through the roof, a better choice would have probably been a 4-inch ABS or PVC pipe. That is seamless. Then you wouldn't have to worry about water coming in at the seams. And when you put the rubber boot, man, I'm sorry, I'm sure the wind noise is horrible up here. When you put the actual boot around the vent pipe itself and tighten up the clamp, you're not going to get any water coming through there at all. You wouldn't even have to use sealant. But because of the choice of vent pipe, sealant will have to be used. I'm going to have to take things apart, and then I'm going to have to seal up that seam to make that completely waterproof, and then put the storm collar over top of that. And hopefully that'll work. If that fails and starts to leak again, then I'm going to have to go inside and disconnect it near the underside of the ceiling, and then come up through the roof with some 4-inch PVC.
I will start with this one because this is the worst, and you can actually see a gap in the sealant right there. So that's probably where daylight was peeking through. And then all along this seam, that's basically compromised. Water is going to get through there as well. Yeah, I'll just start by removing this band clamp. The other thing I'll say too about a band clamp like this on here is you can't even really tighten it super tight because you'll crush this pipe. It's just not very strong. Interesting. I would have used a self-tapping screw to put this on. Oh, somebody's coming to say hello. That's a stink bug. Kind of prevalent this time of year. So what's happening is the water gets through this seam right here and ends up inside the duct. Travels all the way down there and ends up in the classroom. Now, I cannot think of a better product than this Eternabond to seal up this seam. So I'm just measuring for length right now, and then I will cut it in half down the middle and use half of it on this one and half of it on the other one behind me. And while I don't actually think it's necessary, since I am going to take the Eternabond tape and run it all the way down the seam and overlap the boot, I ran a sealed butyl along here as well. It's the same as this black stuff down here. This black is also butyl. This is gray butyl. It's the same product, just a different color. So they will not react to each other.
My apologies for not filming the application of the Eternabond tape, but this stuff is so sticky that you got one shot at it, so I really needed both hands to be able to do this. But it's in place. I think it'll work well. This won't leak again. It just can't. So I'll put it back together and move on to the next one.
Okay, the band clamp is back on and it is tight. The Eternabond tape is completely covering that seam and overlapping the boot down at the bottom. It actually runs underneath the band clamp. So everything is lapped correctly. When I say lapped, it's just like a shingle on a roof. The top shingle goes over top of the bottom shingle, and so it sheds water properly. So water should not be able to get in here anymore at all. So now to just throw the collar on there, and I can move on to the next one over there. Well, it's a 4-inch collar, but it is a little loose in my opinion, and I think that the issue is that this is not ideally supposed to be used as a vent coming up out of the roof. As such, this doesn't quite fit right. This would fit over a 4-inch V-vent, single or double wall. Must have a slightly larger exterior diameter. So I'm just going to take it downstairs and I'm going to trim this tab back a little bit to give me the ability to close it up just a little tighter. And it is starting to rain. Of course it is. That should be enough to be able to close it up as far as I need to close it. Well, what I don't want to do is tool this with my finger, but I did find the cutoff end of this band clamp hanging out up here in the gravel. So I will use that. Doesn't really need it, but if it helps push it down into the seam and against that collar a little bit better to make better contact with it, no, I'm all for that, man. Okay, one self-tapping screw over there to hold the rain cap on. That will not move. And the seam is sealed and the collar is in place.
So this should be good to go.
Okay, let me take you over to the other one on the other side of the classroom.
Another reason why I'm using this Eternabond tape here as opposed to just resealing this whole seam here with butyl sealant or silicone or whatever is I prefer physics over science in this case. And what I mean by that is I prefer a mechanical seal over something that can wear out. This will never wear out. This will be permanent. Keep the string downwind. I can now call both of them done.
You've seen the repair. A little unconventional, I think, using Eternabond tape down that seam, but it's imperative that that seam is sealed along the full length of it. And so this was the most practical way I could think of doing that would guarantee that it's not going to leak again. Like I said earlier, ideally a piece of 4-inch ABS or PVC coming up through the roof. It would have had fewer failings inherent to this type of ducting. But it is what it is, and so you make the best of what you can with what you've got, if you can make it work. And I could make this one work. You know, as far as roofing repairs go, I'm glad that this one was pretty straightforward. The leak was detected, was able to figure out where it was coming from pretty quickly, and come up with a solution that's going to work. It wasn't difficult. I had all the materials on hand, and it didn't take me very long, all things considered. So, hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you sticking around to the end. See you next time. Epilogue. Now, I just thought of something. The reason that I can use butyl sealant here, which is probably the most high-performance sealant you're going to get in this application, and I can use Eternabond tape, is because there's no heat coming out of these vents. They're air ducts. They're venting exhaust air, not heat. Just saying, I wouldn't be using these products on something that was venting a hot water tank or a furnace or anything like that. I just wanted to add that just in case someone thought they could use the same type of repair on a different type of an application that involved heat. Don't do it. You can't use these products on heat. There you go. All right, see you next time.